Alright guys, so we are starting our unit on the American Indians that are in Texas, so Native Americans that are located in Texas. We're going to learn about the different regions they come from, what kind of houses they have, some special behaviors or maybe some rules that they follow within their tribe, and maybe some food, different foods that they might eat and why they would be led to eat those kind of food based off where they live, okay? So, what I want us to do is get your social studies journal, and we're going to take some notes. We haven't taken many notes in our social studies journal, but I want to label for our main title of this is Native Americans of Texas. Native Americans of Texas. So, as we're reading, and we're not going to do it all today, there is a total of 5 tribes that we're going to focus on. We're only going to look at 2 of them today, but we're going to be taking some notes, and I want you to take these notes with me, and we'll add on to them tomorrow. And then at the end, I might have you create something to show me what you've learned. So, take some good notes so that you have them when I ask you to create me something, okay? Alright, so the first tribe that we are going to look at, and this I thought would be an easy way to do it, is to make a bubble map. The first one we're going to learn about is the Caddo tribe. Okay, so one thing we're going to be looking for, and make this bubble kind of big, is we're going to be looking for the region that they're from, because we talked about our regions of Texas. We're also going to be looking at, do they talk specifically about the type of house that they live in? All right, and I'm making my bubbles kind of big, filling my paper. Okay, let's see. Let's put one for any special rules that they have or behaviors. Maybe some special food that they eat. And then I'm going to leave one here, an extra one, kind of as an other. And on this other, if you hear anything cool, you can fill it in here that you think is interesting, okay? So, let's look first. This is actually our textbook. I had to borrow it from another class. We have an online one, but it is not very good. So I borrowed this one. And so right here, we have our Caddo Indians, and they live right here in this region that we learned about by the Gulf of Mexico. And that is our, if we look, because it's green, that's our coastal plains region, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and write that as my region. So we learned that the coastal plain is very, very, very different depending on where you live. So if the Caddo lived down here more by the Gulf of Mexico, they'd be more of a coastal area. But from what it looks like right here, the Caddo look like they're more in East Texas. So that's going to be in our piney woods. So let's read a little bit about them. Oh, look at this picture too. The Caddo modified their environment and used materials from nature to build their homes. Look at their homes. Those are cool. The rounded tops. They almost look like hills, like they would blend in and kind of hide maybe from some people. I don't know. Let's read about them. 3,000 years ago in the river valleys of the eastern and central parts of what is now the United States, an ancient culture built great mounds to honor their gods and the dead. Over time, these mound builders moved south. They settled in East Texas more than 1,200 years ago. Today, we call these descendants of mound builders the Caddo. All right. The Caddo lived in clusters of settlements along the Red River, near what is now Nacogdoches. Their community was arranged as a confederacy or a union of people or groups who worked together for a common goal. That could be a behavior, don't you think? So I'm going to put that where it says rules and behavior, a confederacy. And just so I remember what that means, I'm going to put group that works towards goal. Let's put it here. One goal. So they were a confederacy. And if I move too fast, remember, just pause it. Don't freak out. Just pause the video. All right. The Caddo Confederacy protected settlements from attack. They also organized food for the whole community. The Caddo were farmers. Ooh, that's a behavior, don't you think? They were farmers. That probably is going to tell us a little bit about their food, too. Oh, here. They sowed... Oh, wait. The Caddo were farmers. Each spring they gathered to plant clearings in the woods. They sowed corn, beans, and squash until every bit of farmland was planted. I don't see them talking about it here, but corn, bean, and squash, they would call those the three sisters. Okay, and there was a story back, they used to tell a story about the three sisters, and they all relied on each other because the corn, it's a really tall stalk, so it's strong, and the beans, they're a mid-sized plant, and they're more of a vine, and they would crawl up the corn, and the corn would support the beans, and then the squash would keep all of the weeds away because the squash would spread out real wide on the ground, and it would protect the other plants from having weeds all around them. So they were called the three sisters, and they protected the land, and they worked together. Okay? So corn, beans, and squash until every bit of farmland was planted. Groups of men traveled to the plains each year to hunt buffaloes for meat and hides. The Caddo also fished the rivers of East Texas and gathered acorns, pecans, and walnuts from the forest. Dude, that's a lot of good information. So let's go ahead and put that up in the food. Okay, so they had corn, beans, squash. Remember, these are the three sisters. Okay. Then, let's see, they would have buffalo. They said that they also had fish, acorns, pecans, and walnuts. And that makes sense, especially for all of the nuts here, because they lived in the piney woods. And so that was probably something that the women could go out and the children could go out and gather and help to get the food. Okay, let's see what else. Oh, and we also know that they're mound builders, right? Mound builders. I wonder if they're going to give us a specific name for those. Let's keep reading, we'll find out. The Caddo modified their environment and used natural resources to make shelter. The houses in Caddo settlements were shaped like cones. They were framed with wood, and each house was covered in mats made of dry grass. Beds and chairs inside made them comfortable places, and several families might have lived together in the same large house. All right, so let's describe. Their houses were mounds. They were made from wood and dry grass. And a behavior, I think, would be many families would live together. Okay, many families would live together. Today, most Caddo people live in Oklahoma near the town of Binger. In the 1850s, the United States forced the Caddo to leave East Texas and move to Oklahoma to a reservation. Yes, we were not very nice to the Native Americans. A reservation is land set aside as a place for American Indians to live. Nearly 5,000 Caddo, direct descendants of the early mound builders, live in the United States today. From the Caddo word for friend comes the name of our state, Texas. That's interesting. Let's see, do we have any more about the Caddo? Nope. Then we go to our next tribe. So I have this other book also. Let's see if it gives us any more information about the Caddo. All right, let's see. It's not as long. The Caddo lived in the pine forest of East Texas. They were the most advanced culture in the region and were very successful at farming, growing cotton, and making pottery. Ooh, okay. So, growing cotton and making pottery. That might go here. Grew cotton, made pottery. Okay, I think that's pretty interesting. The Caddo would make a clearing in the forest to plant corn, beans, and squash. They built dome-shaped grass houses for many people to live in. Children were taught how to scrape seeds from sunflowers and pumpkins. Young people also learned how to weave strips of cane into mats and baskets. So the children helped the family. Okay, so everybody had to do their part. So those are our mound builders, the Caddo. So lots of good information there.